Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and today I'm here with Kelsey Wagner. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi.
So Kelsey is a dynamic entrepreneur, marketing strategist, and community leader based in Ponca City, Oklahoma. Kelsey is the owner of MyMediaMatters Creative Agency, where she helps businesses grow through innovative marketing, branding, and digital strategies. Beyond her business success, Kelsey serves as a city commissioner and is currently running for mayor of Ponca City. With over a decade of experience helping businesses thrive and a passion for community development, Kelsey brings a unique perspective to entrepreneurship, leadership, and time management. So whether she's consulting small businesses, shaping civic initiatives, or teaching others how to find balance and purpose, Kelsey is a trailblazer dedicated to making a difference. Very cool. So, the first question I'm going to have to ask is public service. This is a huge, when you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business, and then you also were like, you know what? With those extra 3.5 seconds I have per day, I'm going to cut out something and I'm going to devote it to public service. Entrepreneurs are crazy busy. So good for you for wanting to make a difference in your community. But tell me what led you into that.
Well, it's funny because I've always been interested and fascinated with politics, but once I
Mhm.
got into being a business owner, I thought, well, I'm never going to be able to do politics because
Right,
politics is bad for business, so they say.
right.
Uh, but the more I really got into, helping businesses and working with organizations, I really just started to uncover all these things that I felt like I could do more of if I was in a position to make policy change. And so I just felt like I
Yeah,
kept getting pushed in that direction. And I decided, I'm like, imagine a world where more entrepreneurs were running our government. What a better
that
world it would
would
be.
be a better world for sure.
So
Yes.
here I am.
Wow, good for you. Well, that's really admirable. And I've thought the same thing many times. I've thought, I'd love to get into politics. I'd love to be able to do a little bit more to help create change. But, you get overwhelmed with being an entrepreneur and there's so much on your plate. And I'm constantly taking on new initiatives and new opportunities. And okay, we'll just grow a little bit here and we'll do a little bit more there. And then you lose an executive and you're like, yeah, I'm right back to the
Yeah.
grind of, yeah. So,
And
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 then,
I do teach time management classes, and so I
yeah,
feel like being able to balance that and getting into something that you're not prepared for is definitely not something I would advise. But I've changed my lifestyle a lot, and my time management enables me to do that. So
I love that. Okay, well, we're definitely going to dive into that because that's a topic I need to know about. So if I do, I know other people do too. So you're running for mayor. So what is that process like?
Well, originally I ran for city commissioner in 2022, and I actually ran unopposed. So I
Oh,
didn't have
wow.
to run a campaign. I didn't have to go out and, get votes or anything. So
Hmm.
I became an elected official. Well, when I decided to run for mayor, I had a feeling that there was going to be opposition. There is. I have one opponent. So I got way out ahead of the game. I formed my committee. I started fundraising. I started doing campaigning. So I actually announced that I was going to run in July. And then we filed the official paperwork in December. So I'm in the thick of campaign mode right now. And the election is February 11th. So it has
Yeah.
been an out of body type of experience. I've never run a campaign. So it is kind of what you think it is, though. It's definitely demanding.
Yeah, I imagine it is. Well, and so do you have to have a lot of public speaking opportunities? Are you constantly going and talking to groups? Is that what that looks like?
Yes, absolutely. I've held, coffee chats where I invite the public to come out. I've talked to civic clubs. I'm, having a heroes breakfast where I talk to military professionals. So, you name it, I'm doing it. I'm on the camp. I'm knocking door to door. I'm doing everything. I've got signs out. I'm getting ready to run some radio ads. I've got a website. So all the things. Just, I figure. if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And if I'm going to win, I need to make sure that I put all the tools on the table. So
Yeah, well, good for you. And I mean, it's brilliant. You own a marketing agency, so this is like
I
right up
have the
your alley
tools.
of like how to figure this out. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. So, so how did you balance, and let's go into the time management thing. How did you balance being a city commissioner with also being an entrepreneur and getting ready to run a campaign? So talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
about your time management strategies.
Well, I think with most business owners, we generally have a passion to help our community. And what
Mm.
happens is you dip your toe in, and then everybody kind of swarms. Oh, come be on my board, come be on my
Yeah.
group, come volunteer for this. And so you get kind of wrapped up in this, oh, I'm serving on everything. And so
Mm.
about 7 or 8 years ago, I really started getting into time management and, being more intentional with my time. And so I created a personal mission, vision, values for myself. And so I have a personal mission, and everything that I do, I consult that mission. And if it doesn't get me closer to my ultimate goal, then I say no to it. And so what I did when I was really getting ready to be a city commissioner, I had rolled off every single board except for the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm very passionate about helping small business. So I was chamber chair this past year, but I had said no to everything else. So I really am a big believer in intentionality and being proactive with what you're going to do with your time to be the most effective leader to make the most effective change you can. So,
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. I had gotten into a position where you're right. I mean, once you do one thing, they always say if you want something done, call a busy person because
it's true.
they're going to get it done. It's going to
And
be
they do.
efficient and they get it done. They always get it done. So, but yeah, there was one time where I think I was serving on like four different committees and boards, and I, was so drained, and I mean, pulled in so many directions, and I felt like I was constantly like fighting deadlines, like, oh God, it's
Yes.
Friday,
And
that's my
that's an
Thursday.
easy recipe for burnout, right?
Yeah, very much so. And at the end of that year, I remember I just, at the end of the last board service term, I said, I can't, I'm taking a year off. And I took a year
Yeah.
off of volunteering for anything.
Good for
And,
you.
and it took me some time to just kind of decompress from all of it
Yeah.
because, when you're constantly pulling so many directions, but, the good thing about that is you do become disciplined with your time. And
Mhm.
I became much more efficient at my business after that because I was able to
Yes.
focus fully, but I also focused in a more meaningful, purposeful, intentional way.
Yes, exactly. And I think when you start to look at your time and actual time blocks and you
Hmm.
multiply that out by weeks and months and years, and it's okay. It doesn't matter what you do with your life, but if you choose to do, travel sports with your children, you're
Hmm.
looking at, 20 hours a month or
It's
something.
a
I mean,
huge
so
commitment.
exactly. And so just understanding and knowing what those commitments are, like when you're going to sign up for something, ask what the time commitment is ahead of time. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about, but it does add
Hmm.
up.
It really does. So, talk to me now a little bit more about your marketing background. So,
Mhm.
you started a marketing agency. So, is that your passion? Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I went to school. I'm actually a trained journalist. I went to school for
Nice.
journalism, and then I went and I got my degree in administrative leadership. So I ended up I worked for a nonprofit. I worked for a bank. I was one of those people. I just was kind of jumping around job to job, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but
Hmm.
I got laid off twice in a matter of 3 years. And I thought,
Wow.
I don't really care what I do next, but I don't want to get laid off again. So I thought I'm going to start my own business. And so I had already been doing, building websites for people. I've always had a very techie kind of background. So I
Yeah.
started doing that on the side, and then I launched My Media Matters, and it just took off. And so I've got customers all over the country. And I think that one of the things they really love about me is that I'm approachable, I'm consistent.
Mhm.
One of the things I get all the time from people is, oh, my web designer doesn't ever email me back. And
Yeah.
so being a human person that
Hmm.
answers the phone and emails back, that it's a low bar, but it is amazing how many people just can't do the basic things. So
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, there are so many times where I got a contract with somebody just because I answered the phone because they're like, you're the
yes,
first
yes,
person out of four people that I've just called that answered the phone. And I
it's
took
true.
time to actually like set aside, like, hey, well, let's talk. What are the issues you're trying to solve and how can I help you? And,
Hmm.
people just want to be heard and they're
They
tired of
do.
talking to, the wall and getting
Yeah.
nowhere. And so I
Yeah.
feel like as efficient as our world has become with the internet and email and everything else, it's also highly inefficient because we're just
Hmm.
overwhelmed with so much stuff that we block it all out and then it's
We
impossible to
do.
get to a human.
Yeah, and you can never really replace the value of just true human to human, communication, because
Hmm.
you'll go back and forth with email for weeks when it could
Yeah,
have been a 5-minute phone call, really.
exactly. Or texting. Oh my gosh. I'm like,
Yeah.
just call me.
Love
Just
texting.
just call
Yeah,
me.
just yeah. I do love a short text sometimes though.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
that's more efficient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I own a small business and a lot of people who are listening are small business owners. So how can we develop our marketing better? Because marketing is one of those things where if you're not in marketing, it feels confusing and it feels
Yeah.
overwhelming. There's so many outlets. So what advice would you give to small business owners who are looking to do marketing at a, reasonably cost, but they want to get their name out there?
Yeah. I think for most small business owners, they struggle with finding their voice.
Mm,
They see all these different people and what they're doing, and they want to do what they're doing. And so I
right.
think what my recommendation always is that authenticity. That's what people connect with. And so
Mm,
you really have to look inward, find what makes you special, find what makes you unique, and then do it in a way that nobody else is doing it. And that's where people really latch on. I mean, you have those people that are going viral and all this stuff. It's because they're doing something different and unique. You don't have to, try to copy. Um, and you can spend a lot less marketing dollars and get a lot more traction by doing it that way than you can. I mean, I have seen people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with very, very little return on investment because they don't have that authenticity.
hmm And I've made those mistakes too. And unfortunately, especially when it comes to advertising, like print
Hmm.
advertising, it's so
Yeah.
expensive. And if you don't do
Yeah.
it right, you could literally just walk away with nothing. And I've done that a few
It's true.
times. Like, they'll convince you, hey, if you advertise, you get a full page ad in this
Hmm.
magazine and it'll be, gone to this many people. But then you have to ask yourself, have I read this magazine? Because if I haven't
Right.
read it, are my competitors reading it? And so
Right.
I definitely got stuck in that trap before where I agreed to spend, you know, thousands of dollars on print ads
Hmm.
that no one saw. We never got any
Yeah.
return on investment. And imagine if we had put that same amount of money into online marketing or a better
Yeah.
website, or,
Yeah.
it would have actually probably given us a better return.
Yeah, and you do have to be really strategic, where you're spending your marketing dollars
Hmm.
because it does matter, if like you said, if you're not reading it, who else is reading it? We actually do, own a magazine called Ponca City Monthly Magazine, but it's a hyper local publication. And, we have a lot of people that say, oh, I don't know, print is dead, but it really depends on the publication. It depends on,
Hmm.
who's your audience? Who are you trying to reach? There are some
Right.
companies that should not spend any money on print and they should only be doing digital. But likewise, if you're trying to reach an older demographic, you need to be in print. And so, like,
Yeah,
just knowing your audience, knowing what customers you're trying to reach is very, very important.
absolutely. So, branding is something else that I feel like people get wrong. I feel like they think a brand is just a logo, and it's so
Mhm.
much more than a logo. And I think it really
It
goes
is.
back to what you were saying earlier about a voice. It's really your voice, and so it's
Yeah.
putting your voice in an image, in how you do your business, how you put things out on social media. And one of the things that I do as a CEO of a company is I have a personal brand. And so the personal brand is not necessarily about me, it's about me being the leader of this company. And
Hmm.
so, I represent the company with this voice, and that voice also translates to everything that the company does. So I think building a brand is important. So what recommendations do you have for brand building as a small business?
Yeah. I'm gonna go out on left field here because I feel like I see this so much is it's really important getting that brand, but the biggest mistake I see people having is they rebrand way too often. They
Really?
they get a great brand and then they do I think it's fun and exciting and fresh to rebrand. Like, but I see people do it like every year. They're like, oh, I got a fresh brand. I got a fresh, and it's
Yeah.
okay to update your brand. It's a whole different thing to rebrand. I see companies
Mm,
that are changing their business name, that are changing their logo to something completely different. So I would say put a lot of work and effort into getting that brand. And you're right, the colors,
mhm.
the feeling, the meaning, everything really makes a big difference. And then once you get that brand identity together, really, really own it. And then a couple years down the road, yes, you're going to need refreshes. Look at Coca-Cola. Their logo is completely changed. They've done, 25 different updates to their brand, but they've kept that core identity of who they are.
Yeah,
And it takes such a long time to become recognizable. And it becomes a very, very valuable asset in how you take care of it.
absolutely. Well, and then protecting that asset, going into the
Yes.
legal part of trademarking
Hmm.
it and making sure that that brand stays your brand.
Yeah.
And my company is called Titan, and so it's a pretty common name. But one of the things that we did a while ago was go and get the trademark. So we own the
Very
trademark, we
good.
own the word Titan in
Yep.
security because it is
Awesome.
so common, and it's really easy for other people to be like, this sounds like a good name.
Yep.
But, they'll spend thousands of dollars on marketing materials and all these things and not do the research and then get a letter
Exactly.
from us.
Yeah.
It's a cease and
Yep.
desist from the attorney.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think, as you're branding and as you're getting your name out there, also do that extra step of due diligence of making sure it's not somebody
Yep.
else's brand or it's not infringing on somebody's trademark, which is a huge, huge thing.
Because then you will have to rebrand, and that
Oh
will be,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah. It can be
Forced
expensive
rebrand.
too. Once you've gotten signage and paid for it's a very expensive investment. It can be.
It can be absolutely right. Yeah. So I mean, you could have to get um, all new uniforms. I mean, there's just
Hmm.
it's endless.
It
So,
is. It is.
um, so how do you incorporate what you do as a entrepreneur and a business owner with your community engagement?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's a conversation I've been having a lot with the citizens of Ponca City and with
Mhm.
fellow business owners. I feel like that we're all kind of standing around looking at each other, and we all understand a couple things. Number one, the world is completely different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years
Yes.
ago. And number two, a lot of our leaders that have been in powerful positions leading, they're all ready to retire. And so we have kind
Mhm.
of this big shift in who is going to be the decision makers. And so I feel like one of the things that I really bring to the table is, as a marketing professional and as someone who has worked with a lot of businesses, communicating a message out to people is very, very important. From a city perspective, we're trying to compete to bring in new businesses, we're trying
Yeah.
to bring in tourism. And so having an effective marketing strategy at the municipal level it's never been more important than it is now. People communicate differently, they shop differently, they work differently. You can live remotely now. And so
Hmm.
attracting the type of families and citizens that you want to live to build a thriving community is extremely important. And so I think that my marketing background gives me a very competitive edge, and someone who, you know, doesn't have that, it's a different kind of leadership.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that the leaders who, are still around and they've been in politics or community, involvement for so long or civic roles, it's a different world than when they started too.
Yeah,
And so if you've spent your whole life in politics and you haven't been a business owner and you haven't been in the workforce at the same level as the citizens that you're serving, it's really hard to identify with them. And I love
it
that you are
is.
out there engaging with small businesses every day because I do
Yeah.
feel like it gives you a pulse of what's happening in your community because small businesses are a community. Our communities are not run by
Absolutely.
the large corporations. They are run
Yep,
by the small businesses. That's who employ most of our citizens.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our small businesses, it's been a very hostile environment the last 5 years. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these small brick and mortars are having to make some very difficult decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
they need support. They need support from everywhere that we can give it to them. But some of these small businesses are overcoming these odds and doing such amazing, innovative things. And what do small businesses do? They give back to the community. They're the
Absolutely.
first in line to donate to the bake sale and all these other things. So,
They're the ones who have their signs up at the ball field. When your
yep.
kids go to play football or basketball or baseball, they're the ones with the signage. They're the ones who are out there supporting the community effort. So
Yep.
absolutely. So, so you have something called Rivershire. So
Yes.
Rivershire is an RV park?
Yes, it's an RV park. My husband and I are both entrepreneurs. He actually has a
I love
full-time
that.
job, but he'd been watching me own my own small business, well, t two small businesses for a while, and he thought, Kelsey, I think I want to have an investment property. What do you think we should do? So he is a scoutmaster of Troop 524 here in Ponca City. He loves camping. He loves outdoor adventuring. So he kind of settled on an RV park.
I love it.
So we bought that RV park and fixed it up and put a lot of love and time and attention into it. And then we had a post go viral last year that has kind of changed our life. It's been very eye-opening and a fun experience.
Really? So tell me about how that went viral and what it was.
So obviously my business, I'm a social media person, but just
Sure.
personally, I've always, shared a lot on social media. I'm a writer and I love to talk about my life. But my husband is a very quiet person. He does not
Huh?
post. He's one of those people that just watches on social media,
Yep,
never
yep.
interacts. So when we bought the RV park in November, we did all the things. We built a website. We, were posting on social media for Rivershire. Uh, but again, this is kind of goes back to that finding that authentic voice. We were really frustrated because he had one person book from November to April, and we
Oh,
were starting to get very, very worried. And it was May when my husband walked in one Saturday, and I actually had a sick kid. I was taking him to the doctor. My husband and we had been, I don't want to say fighting, but it was a stressful situation
stressful. Yeah,
because
yeah.
we were watching the bank account and doing some projecting, and we're like, if this continues on through the end of summer, by the end of the year we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions.
Mm.
And so me being the person I am, my husband was just so frustrated, so I just got on Facebook. I thought I'm just going to ask people what they think, so I made a post and I said, hey guys, I need some help. My husband bought an RV park. We've done these things and we are not getting any campers. What do you think we should do? It was a very simple post that I wrote in about 30 seconds, and I posted a picture of my husband, and then I got in the car and drove my kiddo to the doctor. By the time we left the house and got to the doctor, it had been shared like 100,000 times. It was the craziest.
Wow.
My phone started blowing up. And I think what connected was that my husband is a military veteran. He's a scoutmaster. And then the RV park community, I mean, between those three kind of niche communities, they saw someone that was working hard and in need of help. And it kind of gives me goosebumps. Like, our park was full for 2 months straight. I
Oh,
mean, booked
wow.
solid. And still to this day, I mean, we're talking, this has been 9 months ago. Like, still to this day, people call because of that one Facebook post. It's
Amazing.
yeah, life changing. And that's why I say it's so important to find that authentic version of yourself, because when you can get that connection,
Mm.
that brand becomes identifiable with who you are as a person, and there's nobody else that can be you. And so my quiet husband who hates Facebook and never posts, the post was so wonderful for him because now people go to the park, then they know he's not a big social media guy, but they love to go and talk to him about military and scouts and all the things, and his business is just thriving. So
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for him and I'm so happy for you. What an amazing
yeah,
story. I love that.
yeah,
Well, and I think people love vulnerability because they
yeah,
connect with vulnerability. We've
right.
all been vulnerable and we've all wanted somebody to say, "Hey, I got you," right? And
Yeah,
so when
yeah,
you have that opportunity to do that for somebody else, it's like for me, it's like, oh, it makes me feel great that I know I helped
yeah,
somebody else, right?
yeah.
So
It's true. And I think that there's a special kind of condition where you have to put in that work up front. Like, you can't be the first one asking for help, but when you've done everything that you know how to do, and you do, and that vulnerability I think people connect with that so much. And I give this advice to just regular, if you own a restaurant and, your numbers are down, there's this interesting thing where sometimes people don't want to be rude and tell you what they really think unless you ask for it.
Mhm.
Get on there and say, hey guys, our numbers have been down. What can we do better? People will direct message you. Most people are very kind, generous people. But if you're not asking for that feedback, how are you supposed to know? And not everybody is going to leave you Google reviews. You can't always rely on that. So
Yeah.
it's being a good listener.
Yeah, and Google reviews can be very one-sided because
They
usually
can
you're
be.
only going to go to a Google review if you've had a terrible experience. I
That's
do give a
true.
lot of accolades to those people who say, "Hey, at the end of every service, no matter how it went, hey, leave me a Google review. Leave me a Google review."
Yeah.
Because if they ask, I'll do it. But if they don't,
Hmm.
I generally don't
Yeah.
think they do it if they've done a good job. It's only when I
Yeah.
leave mad about something that now I'm going to go leave a Google review.
And that's just human nature, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's, an exceptionally good or an exceptionally bad experience triggers you
Right.
to
Right.
want to do
Yeah.
something about it. But
It's
if you just
true.
have a decent experience, you're like, "Oh, that was good, that was expected,
Hmm. Yeah,
then you
exactly.
just kind
We
of move
take it
on with
for,
your
yeah,
day.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, what other social media advice would you give to people?
Yeah, probably just some of the things that I see. I work with hundreds of businesses, and when you do that, you just really start to see some patterns. I would say uh, sorry, I'm going to get this wrong. Under promise and over deliver.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I think some people get very big lofty goals and then they say I'm gonna start a podcast, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and then they
Mm-hmm.
do it, they get out gung-ho, and then it can kind of get out of hand and then it falls off the face of the earth. So I
Yep.
always say start small, commit to one post a week. If you've never done Facebook before, you don't want to hire anybody to do it, commit to one post a week, and then after 3 or 4 months that you've been being consistent with it, amp up your game after that. So I
Mhm.
think that our clients, they want consistency is very, very important. Authenticity is important, but it's not a good look when you do 5 or 6 posts in the matter of a couple weeks and then you don't post again for 4 months. They can see that. So
Yep. Yep, exactly. Yeah, well, and I see that a lot with, when I started my podcast, I did it on a dare. I really did.
yeah.
I
Oh
somebody
wow.
it was, I had been during COVID, I had done some coaching, just honestly for something to do because my
Yeah.
business was shut down for 5 months during
Oh
the
yeah.
pandemic. And so I was just looking for something to do other than, you know, house projects. I needed something besides digging ditches in my yard to keep me busy, or else I
Yeah.
was going to take on way more than I needed to and spend way more money
Right.
than I needed to. And so I was looking for just something that I could do. And so I started coaching entrepreneurs, and it was a really eye-opening
Mhm.
experience. But in doing that, I realized the need that was out there was greater than what I could do one-on-one. And then when I started
Mm.
doing more of, I started getting back into my business, I didn't have the time for that one-on-one coaching anymore. So for
Right.
me, reaching a larger audience through podcasts seemed like it would make sense. But I was one of those, I'm like, I don't have the time. Maybe one day when
Hmm.
things slow down, when I don't have to worry about, taking on all these roles in the company. And, you always say the one day, one day, one day. And then somebody,
Right.
we were talking about something and they're like, because we had visited a friend's studio who, he had a podcast studio. And I said, yeah, a podcast is one of those things I keep telling myself I should do. And he's like, you should do it on International Women's Day. And I was like, that's like 3 weeks away. And he's like,
Yeah.
"So you think you can't do it then? You just tell me you can't do it if you can't do it." And I was like, well, I mean, I can do it, but
Yeah.
I was like, it's just really impossible. And he's like, well, I mean, if it's impossible for you, then I guess it's impossible. I was like, okay.
Mm,
And so
challenge
it
accepted,
became
right?
one of those. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. I'll do it. I'll do it. And I thought, I'll do it a couple times and nobody will watch it and it'll go away.
Mm,
And I'll just, I can say I did it. And
yeah.
I honestly loved it. I honestly loved it. And
Yeah.
now I'm up to like 118 episodes, and it's
Oh,
just been
nice.
the most rewarding experience because I get to meet amazing
Yeah.
people like you.
Well, first of all, you have a wonderful voice for podcasting.
Well,
That's
thank you.
not everybody has that. So, and I think you bring up a great point about, sometimes it's good to be consistent. It's good to start small,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's that initial fear of just jumping in and just,
Yeah.
breaking the ice and saying, you know what? I'm just going to do this because that is such a powerful way to just get yourself into that momentum.
It really is because you think you can't do it until you're doing it. And then all
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually
yeah.
working. Like I'm actually doing this because
Yes.
I'm not a good, I don't like public speaking very much until somebody said, hey,
Hmm.
we'd like you to be the keynote speaker. And I was like, oh no, there's
Oh,
no way. I was
yeah.
like, that is not happening. And then I
Well,
did
and
it and it was fun.
I, I brought some show and tell. So I wanted to bring my magazine that I do,
That's very cool.
and talk about jumping in head first. I had never printed a magazine in my life. I was a writer.
Yeah.
But then, I decided to start a magazine, and, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you just set that goal and say, I'm going to do this, and nothing can stop you from doing it. And I think people
100%.
underestimate their potential.
Oh my gosh, all the time. Yeah, there's oh gosh, who says is it? So I want to say Thomas Edison, but I know that's probably not right. But there's a quote that says, it's astonishing what you can do. Gosh, I'm gonna butcher this. It was on literally had it on my Facebook forever, but you'd be amazed of what you're capable of if you'd only try, basically like
Yeah,
we'd be
yeah,
astonished if we knew all that we were capable of. And it's true, like
absolutely.
we are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And
We
so
really are.
all it takes is putting that one foot in front of the other and just pushing through. And then if you fail, but you learn, and that's okay.
Right.
Like it is 100% okay to fail at something. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think people just don't take the chance, and I love that you're running for mayor because that is exactly one of those things where people would be like, oh, I could never, I could never, I could
Yeah.
never. But you're like, you know what, you can. And
Yeah.
you're serving your city right now as commissioner. So,
Yeah.
good for
And
you.
I'm not in Ponca City, at least I would not be the first woman elected to mayor. I would be the second, so that's good.
Wow. Yeah.
But it's amazing because as I've gotten into this position as a city commissioner, I see more young women that are running for positions of office, and I think that that's amazing. We need, not just young people, but we need people from all across the board, more business owners, more, people from all different backgrounds to really just, technically, public office is a time commitment, but
Yeah.
technically it's only one meeting a week here in Ponca City. That's the
Hmm.
actual time commitment. There's meetings and other things outside of it, but if it's something you're passionate about and you want to do, make the time, make it
Hmm.
happen.
Absolutely. And I mean, we all have the same amount of hours in every day, right? Like
We do,
some
we
people are
do.
taking those hours and they're serving their country. Some are serving in their communities. Some are running, multi-million dollar or billion-dollar companies. And then some are making excuses as to why they can't do anything. So,
It's true.
we
Yeah,
all have the same.
when I teach my time management classes, I use really specific, tangible examples of things like I hire a house cleaner. So for
Hmm.
3 hours a week, I'm saving that time, and 12 hours a month enables me to do something different,
Yes.
and there's very tangible things that you can cut out of your life. Doom scrolling on Facebook. People,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much time people waste. So
Oh
you
yeah.
just have to be intentional with your time.
I have a timer set up on mine. So
Mhm.
after a certain amount of time, it just locks me out. And like that's the best
Yes,
thing because honestly,
absolutely.
it gives you that like, oh crap, I've just been doing nothing, like I've just
Hmm.
spent that much time doing nothing on social media. And
Yep,
so something like that is a big deal, like just being able to cut something like
absolutely.
that out.
Yeah, being
So,
mindful.
uh-huh. So who inspires you?
Oh, that's a great question. I grew up on a farm, and so I grew up driving a combine with my dad and my grandpa, and so
Oh,
probably first right out of the gate, I'm a daddy's girl, and I've always been inspired by him. He's just a very down to earth kind of guy. But he always taught me the value of a hard day's work, and it sometimes going out and getting dirty and coming home and actually needing a shower. It teaches you lessons that are so valuable throughout your life. And so that's probably one of my big inspirations. I'm one of those people that I latch on to people and I want to learn from them. And so I've always been kind of a sponge type person. And that we're surrounded by people who had just have fascinating stories and wisdom, but you have to ask them and you have to talk to them. And that's probably the journalist and the writer in me too.
yeah.
I will just pepper people with questions. But you know what? They love telling their stories. And I have learned so much from people Our current mayor right now, he's retiring after 18 years. He served in the military and he was a geophysicist, and he is this amazing, wonderful person who has so much to teach me. And he has been a wonderful mentor to me. So I guess I just I love interesting people, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. That I agree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast is just meet people that I would never ever run
Yes.
into in my day-to-day life and learn from them because there's just so much you can learn from listening to people and hearing their story and understanding what challenges that they had to go through and understanding how they've gotten to where they are. And there's just so much value in that. And I think, one of the things that I think is one of the saddest parts of seeing a lot of kids today is that they're afraid to talk to adults. They spend so much time
Yeah,
behind a screen that they have no social
true.
skills. And,
True.
talking to older, like when I talk to grandparents and great grandparents and, people in generations ahead of me, I always am so fascinated by their stories. And I think there's just such a loss when people don't have that.
It's true. It's true. I have some older mentors now that have really, helped guide me on my mayor journey. And one of the things I love about the older generation is the handwritten notes that they mail, and
Yes.
that it breaks my heart to think that may breaks my heart to think that may go away. So I have taken it upon myself to write handwritten thank you notes. And it's
Good
true,
for
the younger
you.
generation, they I have two boys. They're 16 and 18, so I'm right in the thick of those teenage years. But just teaching them to pick up the phone and make that phone call, don't be afraid of it because, like we said at the beginning, that human connection is so, so important, and it is at risk right now with the screen time.
My son is 18 also. And, one of the things that I really instilled in him was, and he was raised as an only child, so he spent a lot of time around adults. And so he was
Hmm.
just kind of used to being, comfortable, getting comfortable around adults. But at the same time, I really wanted him to focus, like when he has to do something, I make him pick up the phone and call, like he has to be comfortable with that. And when he was 13, he started his own business. And it
Good
was just
for
like
him.
eating mailboxes in the neighborhood, and he was just trying to
Yeah,
raise money because I wouldn't buy him these sneakers that he wanted. So I told him
great
he had to
incentive.
raise, yes, he had to raise his own money for it. And so and he was going around doing it. But of course, most parents are just going to email the parent, like, oh, hey, I just
Hmm.
saw your son was out there trying to, he's painting mailboxes. Can he come to my house? And I would tell my son, I'm like, hey, Mrs. Smith wants you to come to her house
Hmm.
also. And he's like, well, did you give her my phone number? Because I like to book my own appointments. And I was like, okay.
Oh, I love him. I love that. What a great
He,
attitude.
he was doing all of his own appointments. He had an appointment book so that he could do it all himself. But
Oh,
he wanted to maintain that engagement, which I think is really important. And I think it's something that's
yeah,
missing a lot in the younger
it is.
generations. And um, I was talking to a kid that he actually he played t-ball with when he was really, really little. And I know his parents, but I haven't seen this kid in probably 10 years, when he was little. And now he's 18 and
Mm.
he's doing door-to-door sales, which is
Oh, I
amazing.
love it.
And I remember him being a really shy kid, but he came in and he was funny and he was, he did his
Oh,
presentation. It was just he was,
I
I,
love salespeople. They have
yes.
this special personality. We have my advertising director for Ponca City Monthly magazine. Oh my God, she loves people, and she just, it takes a really certain passion to do it, but they're so charismatic, and I love to be around people like that.
Yeah, and I think sales teaches you that courage, that
Mhm.
confidence to go out and talk. And he used to be a really painfully shy kid, and
Ah,
he was, when he was telling me about his, this new position, he's like, I love it. It's commission only, so I really have to get comfortable. He's like 6 months ago, I
wow.
was still asking my mom to call to get pizza for us because I didn't feel comfortable talking on the phone with the pizza guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, now I'm knocking on doors and asking if I can come do a presentation for them. And it
Yep.
was just, he's like, it's really taught me so much about life. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that, kids get out there and they do things that push their boundaries and teach them
Yeah.
things.
That's so important. My son, he just finished his Eagle Scout project to get his
Oh,
Eagle rank. And he kind of went through that same experience where he was very kind of timid and he wasn't, super outgoing. And he had to get out there and raise money and go knock on doors and do
yeah.
all this stuff. And by the end of the project, he was so changed and he had just overcome so many of those obstacles. And so that's why if you're not in
I
scouts,
love that.
get in an organization that really pushes your kids' boundaries because they need it and it will force them to grow and mature. And it's wonderful to watch them go through
Mhm.
these challenges and succeed.
Yeah, well, and it gives them such confidence when they know they
Yes,
did that, right? Like
absolutely.
it's a
Yeah.
gift for them to say, I did this and I broke through my own boundary or my
Yeah.
own, hurt my whole, yeah. I
Yeah.
broke through my own barriers. And so it is just
Yes,
such a life-changing experience and it changes who they are and it builds character. So
it
big
does. It
fan of
does.
that. So what obstacles did you have to overcome in doing and starting your business and then again, of course, running for office?
Yeah. Oh, probably, let's see. There's so many obstacles. No, I'm kidding.
I
No.
know. Yeah, well,
Uh,
entrepreneurs, so we deal
well,
with it.
I know we deal with obstacles on the daily, but probably, I launched the magazine. I decided I was going to launch Ponca City Monthly in 2019. So it was November of 2019. And I'm a big planner. I'm a big researcher. So I got everything, got all my business capital and I got my personnel and I made my plans and I did everything. And then, December came and then January came of 2020 and then February and we were just right there selling ads. And then like started hearing about a virus and I was like, okay, well, oh, that's
Oh,
all right. Well, we were going to distribute all of the magazines in grocery stores. And so it got to the point where it was March. And I remember the day it was, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, when the
yeah.
world kind of went, oh, this is like actually a real end of the world scenario. And we had already sent the magazine to the printer and somebody said, are you going to pull it? Are you going to cancel it? I was like, listen, we're in too deep. We're doing this. And
Yeah.
so we ended up literally, the grocery store shut down. I could not deliver the first magazines to the grocery store because they were shut down. So we were wearing gloves and masks and we had wagons and we were going door to door handing out magazines to people. But what ended up happening, and I love the universe in this way, is that people in Ponca City were trapped in their houses with nothing but bad news. And Ponca City Monthly was the only good news that they had for months. And
Wow.
so it was such an amazing thing where it has become this beloved publication. We published human interest stories and stories about, what's going on in the community, and people absolutely love the magazine. But I think that kind of initial obstacle, it ended up being such a powerful opportunity for us to ingrain ourselves in the community. And I think every obstacle is kind of like that, where
Yeah.
you got to find that silver lining. And then you always have to, and I tell business owners I work with this, like everything is going to work out for the greater good. Like sometimes it takes a while to see the greater good, but
Mhm.
if someone said, well, what happens if you lose the election? Well, that's okay. If I lose, then that means that there's something greater out there meant for me. And so we'll just have to see how that pans out. But it's the world, it it how do I say this? The world is going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. So you just
Yeah.
have to keep that in mind and not get discouraged.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say things are working for you. Sometimes you just don't know that. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
amen. Amen.
sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, that can't possibly be for my best interest. But sure
I
enough,
know.
things
Sure
happen
enough.
and
It's true.
you do learn. But good for
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
So I always ask women during this podcast if there was a time that you gave away your power. And we do this
Mm,
as women all the time, whether it's taking criticism or, having to step aside while somebody else kind of takes credit for our work or do something like
mm.
that. So is there a time that you've given away your power?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a situation where, you end up working in these collaborative type of situations, and then there's always that person who maybe you don't completely get along with, or you
Hmm.
don't you have clashing personalities. And I have really over the years, I'm 39 years old, I'll be 40 in October, and you really get to the point where you learn that it's okay to let people just be themselves and to let them go. And sometimes that does mean, kind of letting them take the limelight or take the credit or, take I have one particular situation where someone kind of took the credit for this whole project that I helped with. But
Yikes.
at the end of the day, I have so many other projects going on that it just you have to lose the battle sometimes to win the war. I've learned a lot from those experiences. I've become a better person from those experiences. One of the quotes from a book that I love is that you are you are not the voice in your head, you're the one who hears it. And so
Ah,
knowing that the thoughts that you have, the racing thoughts and things like that, and a lot of times that happens when you're facing confrontation and your brain says, oh, they're trying to get you or they're gossiping about you. And you have to really quiet your mind and
mm-hmm.
understand that, you have to let some of that stuff go. All the petty little things don't matter at the end of the day. I
Yeah.
think I answered your question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and then the other part of that question is, is there a time that you've stepped into your power?
Mm. Yes, I would definitely say so as a young woman in a technology world,
Mhm.
most people, I mean, a lot of people who are in tech are male. That's just the
Yes.
fact of the matter. And so for a long time when I would go to meetings, sometimes I would get mistaken for the secretary and I'm like, actually, I'm the
Mhm.
CEO. I'm sure
Yeah,
that you have had experiences like that.
I
And
have.
I don't judge people for that
Mhm.
because the world is the way the world is. But I think that I used to really kind of play the part of, being timid and letting them, say things. And now I just don't anymore. There was a few years ago, I really just came into my own power of, talking in meetings in a very powerful, direct way and just letting myself, not making myself small, even physically making myself small. Sometimes women sit, a
Mhm.
certain way and I think that we're kind of trained in a way to do that. And so, really, just owning your space, owning your voice, taking time answering questions. There's so much power that comes with just learning to be yourself and accept who you are. And yeah, so there's my
That's
answer to that.
that's awesome. Yeah, I agree. And there is value in letting people do what they're going to do. And so there have been instances in my company, and what I have found lately is, I talk about giving away your power all the time, and I always tell people, make sure you don't give away your power, always step
Hmm.
into your power, own,
Hmm.
own your presence in that room. And, I do public speaking about this exact topic, but yet I
Mm,
will find that like I will be at one of our events and I'll have sometimes I have employees or there's vendors and I don't know every employee. We've got like almost 800, and so I don't know everybody and they don't know me,
yeah.
which is okay. And I'm 100% okay
Hmm.
with that. It's not an ego thing. I don't need every, like I like to kind of be
Yeah.
in the background sometime. And so
Right.
there have been times where somebody's walked up to me and said, "Hey, I need to ask about something, something, something." And I'll point to one of my supervisors and I'm like, "You know what? She'd be happy to help you, or he'd be happy to help you. That's the boss. That's who's
Yeah.
going to be able to answer your question." And then I'll walk
Right.
away. And what
Yeah.
I and I used to, because people used to mistake me, as like, "Oh, does your husband own the company?" Or, "Oh, is this,
Hmm.
are you just a
Hmm.
supervisor? Are you just this? Are you just that?" And they would,
Right.
mistake me for not, having any authority. And that used to be really offensive to me. And now I kind of
Yeah.
consider it a power move. Now I actually
Hmm.
consider it stepping into my power of being
Yeah.
able to just not have to justify who I am. I
Yeah.
am happy to just say, you know what, answer that person will be happy to answer your question. They're the one who will make that decision. They're the one in charge. And then I just walk away because then what
Right.
usually happens is that person will be like, "Hey, yeah, one of your security guards told me that you would make the decision." They'd be like, "She's the CEO."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was kind of, it was one of those things where I just let people believe what they want to believe. And then I remove myself
Exactly.
out of the situation. And then I feel perfectly good about it. I don't feel like I have to justify it all the time. I don't feel like I'm
Right.
constantly having to like, "No, I'm the CEO and you need to respect me."
Right.
Like, I don't care. Like, it's a
Exactly.
power move to not care.
Yeah, it is a power move to not care. Yeah,
Yeah.
letting go of just other people's opinions, like that's not my business. I don't care what most people's opinions is somehow an internal reflection on themselves. Like
Yes.
you keep that over there with you. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm 100% okay with it. And,
Yeah.
by being able to delegate and then walk away, it makes me feel like I
Hmm.
just, I own my time, and
Yep.
I own what I'm going to address
Absolutely.
and what I'm not going to address. And
Amen.
so, for the longest time, I used to have to justify, justify, justify. No,
Hmm.
I need to know, you need to know this. And now I
Yeah.
don't care. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. I love that.
So, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would probably tell her that because I was a stay-at-home mom for 6 years,
Hmm.
um, just enjoy life as it comes because
Yeah.
there, I was a very, I was always kind of an overachiever, and I remember feeling very unworthy when I was a stay-at-home mom and I didn't have a job, and it took me a long time to understand how important that part of my life was. I love homemaking. I love
Yeah.
baking. I love sewing. I love a lot of other things. And that's why I tell women today that are like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, listen, there's time for other things. And
Hmm.
and honestly, if all you are is a stay-at-home mom, then you're everything and more. I
Hmm.
say I went back to work so I didn't have to work so hard because
Yeah.
women who stay at
It's
home with their
true.
kids are working 24 hours a
Hmm.
day. And I just abs so I would tell my 18-year-old self, like, just enjoy the moment, enjoy what's happening. Life is long. We're living longer than we ever have before.
Hmm.
And there's plenty of time to do everything.
There really is. Absolutely. So true. So, Kelsey, I've really enjoyed this. This has been so much fun, and I've learned a ton from you. So, from branding to marketing to public service, I mean, you've just done everything. And I mean, I just wish you so much success. And I am rooting for you for winning the mayor. I can't vote, obviously, because I'm not a resident, but, I wish you so much success. And I really do hope that you're able to lead your city in the way that I know you'll do. You'll do exceptionally well.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and you just keep doing amazing things and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. So, I have one more question for you. What do you
Sure.
wish more people knew?
I wish that more people knew. That's a good question. Um, you're gonna stump me on the last question. I've done so good this whole podcast. Um, what do I wish that more people knew? I'll go way out on a limb here. I wish more people knew how to like do old school stuff like canning sand plum jelly. I'll just say
Yeah,
that because my
yeah,
grandma and I, we would go down on the banks of the Salt Fork River and pick sand plums, and then we'd come up and we'd like make homemade jelly. And I feel like we're in a world that's so fast paced, that slowing down and doing some things like that making things with your hand or making homemade bread.
yeah,
Um, if you are ever struggling in your life, go make a loaf of bread because it,
yeah,
it is just a way to just bring you back into yourself and into your moment. Or, like you said, go out and dig a trench, right? Go
yeah.
do something with your hands.
Hmm.
Because I think we get so busy and wrapped up in the digital world of all the things so I guess that's what I wish people knew is that, there's things that you can do and come back into your moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so much value in creation, right? So even if,
Yes. Yeah.
something like, I decided this year, I was like, I'm going to make candles for everybody for Christmas. And
Oh,
so
I love
one
that.
night, my son is 18, and I'm like, we're making candles tonight. He's like, what? Why don't we just go buy them? And I was like, it doesn't, I was like, we're going to create something. And we
Yeah.
did. And so we made candles together, and it was the most
Oh,
fun. But like just doing things like that where you're creating something because it just
yes.
means so much. Like when I hand them a
Mhm.
candle and I'm like, I made that, I picked
Yep.
out that
Yep.
scent for you, right? And so
Yes.
it just, I mean, people just love it. And just
Oh,
knowing that you put love into something that you're doing for
yes.
them means a lot. So yes,
What
I
a
agree with
cherished
you.
memory.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I will keep you in touch on the mayor race and how it goes.
Yes,
But until
please
then,
do.
I thank you for
Please,
having
please
me.
do. I will try to launch this right before your election so that way you can.
Okay. All right. There we go. Perfect.
So, well, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
You too. All right. Well, have a good snowy rest of your day. I hope everything
Yes,
opens back up very quickly for you.
me
All
too. And
right. Bye
everyone,
bye.
you can find Kelsey on the prettypowerfulpodcast.com. And where else can they find you?
You can follow me on Facebook. I guess it depends. So My Media Matters is the name of my marketing agency, mymediamatters.com, Ponca City Monthly Magazine on Facebook or poncacitymonthly.com. And if you're interested in learning about my mayor campaign, just because you're curious, you can go to kelseyformayor.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey, and all the best to you.
All right. Thank you so
Have a
much.
good day,
Bye.
everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time. And until then, step into your own power.